In this, the second video on lesson 7.2, we're going to look a little more at veto power, dictators and dummies, and then we're going to start our Banzhaf power index. So you can see on the notes in front of you, example 7.2.3, which asks, in the weighted voting system, 57, 23, 21, 16, and 12, are any of the players a dictator or a dummy, or do any of them have veto powers? So we can look at dictator the most easily. To find the dictator, a dictator is going to have a weight that is equivalent or higher than the quota. Now, our quota in this example is 57, and our first player with the highest weight is only 23. So there are no dictators. Then to see if who has veto power and who's a dummy, we're going to look at the coalitions that when you group players together, we call that a coalition, and we're going to look at coalitions that are greater than the quota. So if I look at any single person, player one here has 23 as his weight, and then it goes down from there. So none of these players can meet the quota on their own. So we don't need to consider those single person coalitions. If we look at the two-person coalitions, I've listed them here. That's player one and player two, player one and player three, player one and player four. And then we do player two, three, and player two and four, etc. They're listed here. We only need to look at the coalitions that are equal to or greater than the quota. So having listed these and adding them up, since my quota is 57, any two-person coalitions here, you can see the highest one with player one and player two are only 44, which is not even 57. So none of these, no two players alone can meet the quota. Now, if we go to joining up three players at a time and look at if they meet the quota, with player one, player two, and player three, in my first example here, they total 60, which does indeed exceed 57. So this is what we'd call a winning coalition. But the rest of them, if I have player one, player two, and player four, that's only 56. And since my quota is 57, it's no good. Then if we start going with players further down the line, none of those are going to meet the quota either. So we don't even have to worry about them. So the only way that we can have enough points or weights to meet the quota is with player one, player two, and player three, or with all of the players voting the same, which is called the grand coalition. So here we look at these and we say, okay, if I removed any of these players, would they be, would we still meet the quota? Because that's defined as veto power. If you remove a player and then they won't meet the quota, then it's called veto power. So if I look at player one, player two, and player three in this coalition with these first three players, if I were to remove any of them, I know that I would not meet 57 because none of these two-player coalitions in the second column worked. If we removed 16, we'd only have 44, which is not enough to meet the quota. So all player one, player two, and player three in this coalition have veto power. They have veto power. Now, if we look at this last winning coalition, we have player one, player two, and player three. If I were to remove, for example, player three here, I'd have 44 and 12 is 56, which is not quite 57. So I can't remove player three. I certainly can't then remove player one because he even has more weight, or player two. So these three guys still have veto power. And this poor guy, player four, it doesn't matter how he votes, whether he votes for it or against it, it's not going to have a say. So we're going to have to say player four is a dummy. Now, what we're going to learn as we look at power and the Banzhaf power index, what comes next, is that, dummies have no power. and that veto power, this concept of veto power is very important.